Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the PZA meeting for Wednesday, June 21st. We get a roll call, Michelle?
Mr. Featherling?
Here.
Mr. Miller?
Present.
Ms. Weber?
Present.
Mr. Fairfield?
Present.
Mr. Long?
Present.
Mr. Swanson?
Present.
Mr. Eckhoff?
Present.
Ms. Foster?
Present.
Ms. Andrea?
Present.
Sorry if I said that wrong. Mr. Ashcraft? Mr. Scanlon? Ms. Turner?
Present.
Mr. Wheeler? Mr. Alexander Hildebrand?
Present.
We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. I don't believe we have any public comment. I haven't been notified of any, so we'll move on to the approval of the minutes from May 17th. Get a motion. Okay, Mr. Swanson, second by Mr. Long. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, next up we have the building report from May 2023. We get a motion to approve it. Okay, Mr. Miller. Okay. Mr. Eckhoff. Okay. Okay, go ahead, Del.
Hit number 3.
Oh, you gotta have a mic, huh?
Yes. Okay. As loud as my voice is, they need the microphone for the recording. In your packet, you should have the building report for May 2023. We issued 3 new home permits, 99 permits total, and had revenue of $42,095. And that is up from May of 2022, where we issued 84 permits with revenue of $28,887.
Okay, Mr. Eckhoff.
Del, what's a smoke permit?
Smoke detector.
Oh, okay. All right.
Where's that at on here?
At the bottom, smoke.
Yeah, that's smoke detector.
Do we
inspections.
usually do that for like real estate transactions? Do we have an ordinance for that in the county?
It's actually a state law.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
But so we pay because this is the first time I think I've actually seen it on your report. So like fire districts, they go ahead and get smoke detection or smoke inspections. The county does as well?
No, we do it when the fire department doesn't.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So that's why we don't have very many of them.
Okay. Appreciate it.
Okay, any more questions for Del? No? Barring none, let's get a voice vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, thank you. Okay, next up is Stormwater MS4 program discussion, Del.
Just like every month, our MS4 program, I'm required to ask the committee if they have any stormwater issues that they'd like to discuss.
Probably don't have it. It hasn't rained in a couple of months.
Craig, do you have any?
No. Okay. Del, nothing else on that add with that?
No, that's it.
Okay.
We did get our, I think I mentioned last month, we went through our review on that and passed.
Okay. Okay. Next up, we got the decommissioning plan, bond for Bourbonnais.
Yeah, Bourbonnais number 1. It's a community solar garden up in at 6000 North Road, Bourbonnais, Illinois, which is right corner of like 6000 Career Center in that general area there. The decommissioning bond is in the amount of $184,150.93.
I had a quick question, Del. Weren't we going to put those through and just have them be filed, and or are we going to keep bringing them here? Is that what we're going to keep doing? It seems like they're all the same. If you read, they're close to the same.
Well, the decommissioning plans themselves, they're itemized to be the same items. The numbers do change.
Yeah. Okay.
We will likely keep bringing the bonds to this committee unless I hear differently from the state's attorney's office.
Okay. Yeah. Mr. Wheeler.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and while you were gone, and I'm not sure if this has impact on that, but the trailer bill addressed decommissioning plans as well. So they're not all going to be cut and dried.
Okay.
Because we don't have to guess on what scrap value is going to be anymore.
Okay.
So I think that may be what you're referring to. The other stuff we still don't see because we don't permit it. The state does.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
I know under the new legislation, even with they're adding the scrap value back into it, but that's really at the discrepancy of determination of the state. It allows that the IAMA, the Agricultural Impact Mitigation Agreement, to include scrap value, but our bond still has to be equal to theirs, and the decommissioning plan equal to theirs. So if it doesn't get put in there, we can't put it in.
Okay. So is the trailer bill moving through the process? Is that what's happened, or is it already through?
It's passed. I don't know if it's signed, but
I think it's waiting on a signature is all last I heard.
Next time it's 4 in the morning, they'll get it. Yeah, okay. Okay, Dale.
All right.
Okay, we're gonna, get a motion to approve the decommissioning plan. Everybody read through it, I'm sure. They're all the same. Okay, Mr. Long. Okay, Mr. Swanson, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay. Okay, we're gonna talk about presentation on abandoned, dilapidated rural properties, and Mr. Skimmerhorn has something for us on that. He's got a PowerPoint.
Yeah, it's fairly short, but last month Chairman Wheeler asked that I do a presentation on abandoned structures as part of our ongoing training course, so we'll get started with that. First, let's start with definitions. Most people call them abandoned structures, but we rarely classify one as an abandoned structure because for that to happen, there can be no apparent owner to be located, and taxes have to be unpaid for 2 years. And we have vacant structures. That's any structure that is unoccupied or unused. A vacant structure is not a violation provided it's secure and maintained. The majority of our abandoned structure calls do fall into that category. Then there's dilapidated structures, which is any structure through neglect or injury, lacks necessary repairs, or otherwise in a state of decay or partial ruin, to an extent that the structure is a hazard to the health, safety, and welfare of the general public. I always reiterate, ugly is not a violation. Okay? It's not. It has to be structurally unsound. Here's some examples. This is an example of an abandoned structure.
Yeah, it's over by my house.
Okay? That's over on Laurel Lane. We actually just got court order to demolish that one.
Nice.
Okay? This is a vacant structure. The history on that one was that the owner had passed away and had no heirs, I believe. I think we actually did find a son who is probably cleaning it up now, but there was no apparent heirs to take over the property at the time. This is a dilapidated structure. And they can be all three. This one's abandoned, vacant, and dilapidated.
Yeah, no.
Okay. Those are the ones we really want to try to handle. Okay. There's approximately 106 vacant or dilapidated structures in Kankakee County, unincorporated Kankakee County. We did not survey municipalities. Every township has at least one, with Pembroke Township leading the pack with 30. Then Momence, Otto Township, and Roma Township. And I have this little chart here, and I can send this out after the meeting, so you don't have to read all of that, but that's the breakdown by township.
You get it out in the email?
Yeah,
Okay.
it was not part of your packet.
No, but I mean, can you get it out in the email?
yes.
Okay, thanks.
Our basic process. The office finds out about it. We're notified somehow, usually by complaint from a neighbor. We verify that violations exist. Then we're required to contact the owner in writing about the violation, providing them with a deadline, what the violation is, state any potential fees and fines, and telling them what must be done to correct the situation. If they're cooperative, a list of actions is created and a schedule is developed to bring the property into compliance. If they're uncooperative, we turn it over to the state's attorney for legal action. That's very basic of the process, but that's the process. That one I told you about over on Laurel Lane for an emergency demolition order we asked for in October. We finally got it last week. And that was an emergency order. So this process takes time. Limitations. Funding. To board up a building takes about $3,000 per building. These are average costs. To demolish, around 18,000 per building. And our budget for any of this stuff is 0. Now, when we find an owner, we can try to get them to do both of these. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. Time. Takes time to do this. There's a lot of man hours involved with phone calls and reporting and keeping track of everything we say and do for the court cases, that because we have to assume every one of them is going to a court, so we build our file accordingly. I have 1 code enforcement officer for 680 square miles and 106 abandoned structures. And of course, the state's attorney has 2 attorneys that support us, and they also have very many other things to do. The court, as I said, the courts can be slow, tedious to navigate, and a lot of times we fall short of imposing any substantial fines. I remember one that had fines into the probably nearing $10,000, and we ended up with 1,500 of it. Is all we ended up with. Okay, so cost, if we were to do all of these, if we just secured all of them, would be $318,000, and to tear them all down would be probably about 1.6 million. So you can see there's a huge, and that doesn't include, you know, legal fees, staff time, any buying out of the property, any environmental issues. If you find asbestos in it, that number can double. If there's any stored fuel tanks or any kind of chemical storage, that number can double or even triple. So it's quite an undertaking to get into. So we pick out the ones that are the most dangerous, the ones we're pretty sure that we can get done and that we have time to do. And if the county does pay for any of this, such as the one on Laurel Lane, our only mechanism to recoup our money is to put a lien on the property, so that if it ever sells, then we'd get our money back. We did that once on one in Aroma. It took us 15 years to get our money back, and that was a lien of $7,000.
Boy,
So
courts are slow.
in general, we try to get the property secured. That's our #1 goal, secured so that children don't get in there and that they don't become a haven for rodents and animals. Most of the time, they become vacant and run down because the owner died and there is no owner. If you wait long enough, usually a couple of years, it either gets sold for taxes and somebody gets it that way. If there's a bank involved, sometimes they'll do something. Usually once it changes hands, the new owners do something with it, but that can take a couple of years process to do that. Most of the time, we only seek demolition in very severe cases like that one example I showed you. Yeah, that's my report. So.
Okay, anybody have any? Mr. Long.
Thank you. So somewhere in Illinois ILCS, there's laws that support our actions, or is it
Yes.
by county ordinance?
Both.
Okay. So where could one find?
Well, it's not all in one place. There's information in the adopted IRC building codes about how to handle dilapidated abandoned structures. And Terry Gowdy, State's Attorney's Office, is far more schooled at this, but there is a state statute under housing that also covers it, which is the statute we used for the one on Laurel, because there's a whole process about notifications and posting and all of that stuff that you have to do.
Thank you.
Okay,
I can get you that probably.
Mr. Wheeler.
Thank you. Of the, I'm sorry, 100 and, how many were there?
106.
106. Not specific, just a percentage of that. Do you think that are abandoned, that are potentially
Great.
salvageable, savable?
Kelly.
A land bank could fix them up and sell them, you know, those types of things.
I'd say at least 50% are salvageable. They're just run down and unoccupied. Structurally, they're sound, and just need new siding, remodeling. It's possible. Now, are they in a location that would benefit the land bank? I don't know. A lot of them are not necessary. If it's out in the backwoods, can the land bank work with it? I don't know. I have turned that list over to Montel at the land bank. He's going through it. I don't know where he's at on it.
Now, is it noted which ones could be salvageable, or is it just a list of those structures?
I think there's some notes on them about
Okay.
the condition. Each one has a picture, so he can look at that and see for himself.
To me, that's the low-hanging fruit, because if you've got fines and fees, you can wipe those off with the land bank, even back taxes. As long as it's less than 20 grand, we're money ahead, as far as two governmental entities. You see my point?
Yes.
So if somebody will buy it for 20, put 20 into it, they got a place to live.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, since we have not started a violation file on most of those, there is no fines and fees attached to them yet.
Okay, we had that one time everybody brought a list in, and I brought in 2, and somebody had 20 of them, right? 25 in their district. So, but the one in my district, they kind of leaned on the owner a little bit. They boarded it up, but the problem is the neighbor keeps mowing the grass, so you can't ticket them for the grass being too high. I keep telling them, don't mow the grass, you know? But anyway, somebody did buy it now to fix it up, to rehab it, so that's what happened, man. So the process does, the wheels turn and things grab on along the way, and sometimes things can happen that way, especially if it's a $40,000 deal. Guy can put 50 grand and have a place to live for under 90, you know?
And the wheels turn very slowly.
Yeah, but they do turn,
They do turn.
yeah. So as long as they keep turning, we're okay. Okay, anybody else, Ms. Foster?
Yeah, good morning, Delbert. You know, I had mentioned to you about a property out on 114. Did we get that, did the owner ever do anything to correct that issue?
We contacted the owner. He was talking about getting a demolition permit to take it down to the foundation. I don't know if we've issued that yet or not.
Okay,
And then he's gonna put a fence around it to keep people out.
yeah, because it was dangerous
I would have to
the,
check the
to the
status.
public, and the person that called has not called me again. The other thing, as far as the 30 properties in Pembroke, can I get a listing of those?
Yeah, we have the report. I think
Okay.
should have sent that out back in October is when we did that, so, but I can send it again.
Does the mayor have it?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I just sent it to the county. And these are only county unincorporated Pembroke Township, so the mayor would have
So
no
the,
involvement with those.
Yeah, it's the
Maybe
ones out
Mr.
in-
Payton.
It's the ones out in the unincorporated areas that we're talking about.
Okay.
Okay, anyone else? Okay. Barring no more questions, we'll move on again, Dell.
Give me just a second here.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
We don't have to vote on the opening in the zoning board of appeals. We have to
No.
let everybody know we have one opening on the zoning board of appeals.
Yeah, this is a little misleading. We have another opening on the zoning board of appeals.
2?
Last month, we announced Jason O'Connor's departure.
Okay.
This month, Dennis Martin's departure, so we technically have 2 openings
Okay,
as of right now. I do have an applicant for Mr. O'Connor's position.
okay. Do we get to interview him here, or you do it somewhere else?
Generally, if there's only one applicant, we do not interview. I interview, but we don't bring them before the PZA,
Okay.
except to appoint. The appointments are on the recommendation of the chairman, so I'm sure that Andy also talks to them and interviews them.
I know you guys try to spread it out, so, you know,
If there's 2 applicants, then the county code says they come to this committee.
Yeah.
okay,
If there's 1, it's advise of consent.
okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, and next up, after that, we have the appointment of Dennis DeYoung, or David DeYoung, sorry. That's the guy from Styx. Sorry, David. Move him to chairman. I don't believe we had a vice chairman yet, though.
Dave DeYoung is currently the vice chair, and we'd like to move him up to the chairman. I have contacted the other members about being vice chairman, and haven't gotten back to me yet.
Okay.
So
Well, we go ahead
by
with
next
Mr.
month,
DeYoung,
we
yeah.
should have somebody for the vice chair.
He's been there quite a while. He's very well versed in what's going on. So, and he's got a really real nice. He comes and gets involved. So he's a good guy to have there as the chairman. So, we gotta get a motion in a second. Mr. Eckhoff, Mrs. Weber. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay. All right, now we'll move on to the next one. Oh, Mr. Wheeler.
Thanks. I just want to mention, in this process, we found that the board appoints the chair and vice chair for the ZBA. Typically, we always talk to the people, Del, as you know, who have been there the longest, but ultimately, the board needs to know they choose the vice chair and the chair. And it's not appointed by the board itself, ZBA, it's appointed here. I just want to make sure that was clear, because as we were going through, we didn't know that.
Yeah, it seems like the vice chair was picked by the board when the whole time I was on there.
And it's just it was like next person up. You know, if somebody left and you went seniority, well, that most of the time that makes sense. But just so it's clear, the board does pick the chair and the vice chair. This board of ZBA.
Okay.
That's all I want to mention.
But the thing is not, when you only have one candidate, not interviewing them, you might, but if you get an airline pilot who's never around and he applies for the job and then you got to give it to him. That's the thing, if you don't even get a chance to talk with the person.
I'm sorry, I don't follow.
Well, airline pilot has no experience in zoning or planning or anything like that.
But how does that have to do with the chair or the vice chair of the ZBA?
Well, actually, it doesn't. It has to do with the fact that we're not interviewing here if there's one candidate.
Correct.
So if there's one candidate, it could be totally not qualified, totally doesn't show up, never comes.
And I would say if they're not qualified, you won't see the name before you.
Right.
Okay, so it won't get that far, because if Dell gets only one guy and he needs guys, then he's probably gonna take them.
That's not true at all.
Okay, all right, well, I don't know.
They are vetted by me and our Chairman Wheeler.
Yeah,
And if the name comes forward to here, then we vetted it and then we're okay with them. Otherwise, you won't see it if there's only one.
just want to make sure that you didn't have to take just the one applicant, that you had to take them. Okay, so you're not committed to taking whoever applies.
No.
Okay, then you could advertise again and see how you do.
We need dedication, acumen, commitment, and not a pulse.
Yes,
That's kind of what we're looking for ZBA.
yeah, okay. Okay, historic preservation and planning, Dell, is that Michelle gonna do
Michelle,
that?
take care of the historic preservation part, yes.
You're up.
Good morning.
Morning.
So we usually, back in 2019, I think was the last time we filed an application for a CLG grant. Because of COVID, the state's been behind. This is the first year since then that they've done it. We went ahead and applied because of the time frame. There is no money from the county. It's a 70-30 match, but it's all in-kind services. So I just wanted to let you know that we did apply. We won't hear for probably a couple months yet on whether we get it. We will obviously bring it back here when we do get that grant, because we would need you to approve the agreements. So it's more or less just an informational thing. We will be doing, if we receive this grant, we will be doing a survey of Junior Township for historic sites. We've already done Moments and Pilot. So our goal is to eventually get all of the townships, but it is a tedious, slow-going project.
Okay. Any questions? Or you got somewhere to go?
Not on that.
Okay.
But I have the annual reports.
Okay.
There's 21 and 22 in your packets. It's just informational of some activities that we've done throughout those 2 years. If anybody has questions, I'm here. If you find out you have questions later, just contact me in the planning department.
Okay. Is any questions here? Okay, Mr. Wheeler.
It's not about those reports, it's just, I'm curious about the relationship between Historic Preservation Commission of the county and any local preservation boards within municipalities. Being that it's a governing body, you know, I'm trying to figure out how they interact with it, like as for approvals of sites and things like that. And it may be something you got to research. It's something that's come up in the last week.
So we do have some properties in Bourbonnais and in the city of Kankakee that are landmarked. We have an intergovernmental agreement with them. So anytime someone comes from a municipality that wants to landmark a property, we have to have an intergovernmental agreement with that jurisdiction. The city of Kankakee is a blanket one. We don't have to keep going back to the board. It's a blanket one. Bourbonnais likes to do it on a case-by-case basis. I believe we have one with Moments also, but we have not landmarked anything in Moments yet. And then obviously anything in the county is just ours.
So they, if you know, St. Anne wants to do this as well, they have to do an IGA with the county in order to be able to landmark it all?
Correct.
Okay.
Unless they are a CLG, but no other jurisdiction is a CLG.
Thank you.
Okay, no more questions? We're good? Okay. Okay, Del, we have an update from you on the multi-jurisdictional national hazard mitigation plan.
Yep, we've been working on this for several months. I can tell you it's complete, nice and thick, just like you like to see. Got our money's worth out of it. This thing is huge. Great nighttime reading.
Is that mine?
It will put you to sleep. Would you like a copy? It's also available on our website. We have a limited number of printed copies downstairs. So when you can mug John on his way out and get that one if you'd like. But
I got a lot of time to read these days.
it is complete. We had the public hearing back about 3 weeks ago, and the plan was in public comment period up until last Wednesday. We received no comments on the plan, so as of yesterday, it was sent off to Illinois Emergency Management Agency and the Federal Emergency Management Agency for their review and approval. Once they are done with it, any changes that they suggest or recommend will be completed, and then it will come before the county board for final approval.
So,
That process takes about 3 to 6 months is what I'm hearing.
Mr. Wheeler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So how long after that could we do things like the switchgear in the basement of the courthouse so we can put a generator for the elevator?
I don't think the switchgear counts, but the generator does.
counts.
Okay.
Okay.
As soon as grants become available. So
As soon as the board approves it, then we could start hunting for grants.
yes, as they there's each different, there's 3 or 4 different grants that some of these things that are listed in this plan, maybe 5 or 6, and each one has different schedules. Some of them you have to have your grant application in by March, others it's open, you can do it any time. So once the plan's approved and adopted, then the county board can start looking at which grants they want to apply for and get on those schedules for that.
Okay.
So,
Each municipality involved also must adopt it, otherwise they can't apply for the grants either.
okay.
So,
Should we vote on this here so it can go to the county board, or should we?
no,
No?
we will bring
It's
it
just a
back.
recommendation for now? Just to
Right.
look at?
I just wanted to give everybody an update on it.
It's nice.
I'm not anticipating any changes from IEMA or FEMA, but if they do, then those will have to be incorporated in there. And once that is completed and we've gone back and forth with that, then it comes to the county board. So we're probably looking at September.
Okay.
Like I said, it could be 3 to 6 months.
Okay.
One thing that is interesting with this is that the rules changed about halfway through us writing this plan, and our consultants had a good grasp on what FEMA and IEMA will be looking for, but not 100%. So there may be, we are kind of the guinea pigs on this, and we are the first ones, I think, to be turning ours in under the new rules. So because of that, we may see a few changes that are going to get recommended.
Okay, so we don't need any action on that then, huh, Dale? Okay.
No action.
Okay. All right, next up will be Mr. Wilson. He's got, hey, Ben, would you do this one this time? Sure. That way you're on the TV. It's Mr. Wilson. He's gonna throw a lot of QRSs and AQBs and all that stuff on you, but
I'd like to open with, I'm very disappointed that all of you missed the purple memo from the planning department. It went around. I saw it in the building, so. So this, so we've got I guess one thing first. There's going to be a webinar series for HMGP, which is the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, that will drop in the fall. So hopefully ours will be approved, and then we'll see the webinar for the fall series. There's in 2023 they announced kind of 2 tranches. So hopefully we'll get ours approved and then be able to look for funds immediately after that. So that could be really good. So kind of dovetailing with abandoned vacant properties, we have an initiative that is going through the enterprise zone to look at housing development and housing rehabilitation in an effort to satisfy some of the needs the business community is telling us about bringing people to Kankakee County and a distinct lack of available housing stock. So out of some work with the Economic Alliance, obviously we've legged this quite a bit with Chairman Wheeler to try and figure out how to really look at using this tool effectively. And the goal, I would say, for us is to not just do new housing construction, but also look at rehabilitation. So when you talk about an enterprise zone, we've historically added commercial industrial areas to the enterprise zone. And in order to make this effective, we kind of have to do three things. So we have to add property that would make sense to develop for residential. Because we want to add about 2,000 acres, that takes us above our statutory cap. So then we have to delete some territory. And then we have to do a technical correction to the zone to amend the benefits. Currently, the way the ordinance and intergovernmental agreements read, it would be that we offer this benefit to industrial and commercial property. So one of the added pieces in the current ordinance is to create a condition where residential properties where they're investing more than 50% of the fair market value of the current condition of the property could qualify. And what that does for us is a couple things. It allows us to use a standard that's pretty congruent with other activities we do in housing. So if you have a substantial rehab above 50%, you have to bring everything up to code. If your property's flooded and it's north of 50%, you have to do certain mitigation efforts. So we thought it was a way to not use some sort of, kind of arbitrary percentage or dollar figure. It does, however, create a condition where if you bought a property for, say, let's say $20,000, the fair market value of $20,000, you wouldn't have to invest a ton of money, but our goal would be somebody who's not paying taxes, get a piece of property, a property's not paying taxes, a potential taxpayer buys it, invests enough money to meet that standard, and then gets somebody in there to pay taxes. So all of this kind of crams together in what is an amendment to our enterprise zone. So what we're requesting approval on today is we need to amend the IGA between the county and the cities, the city and villages, and also to pass an ordinance. So we have an ordinance an ordinance amending a previous ordinance, and then a resolution allowing the chairman to execute the amended intergovernmental agreement. You can see in the map we've added territories in the towns and outside of the towns. Most of these are driven by two things. So we use Dell's assessment of our rural properties to create the rural areas. We looked at what is available property that could be easily developed, so not necessarily vacant or derelict or dilapidated, but also just somebody who might have built a road and opened up 8 or 10 lots that didn't finish the lot, so we added the remainder of the lots. And then we met with the towns and did a similar activity. Where do you see your growth happening? I will say we're adding quite a bit of territory. We're adding territory that probably eclipses our zone life. I would love to see Manteno add an extra 1,000 acres of residential development over the next 15 years, but that would be an aggressive amount of development. But it allows us to kind of do this in one shot and then not be back adding 50 acres and 50 acres and 50 acres. So this process, we go through a hearing. All of the jurisdictions are passing the ordinance and IGA. Manteno's passed, Momensa's passed. I'm relatively certain that Mayor Hodge was able to pass it, and we're working with legal counsel in Grant Park, and I think they were able to go forward. So we kind of want to have everything tied with a bow around it. We'll submit the application to the state of Illinois. They have 45 days to review that application and give comment, and then they have 45 days from that day to approve it. So essentially 90 days for us to get up and running with this new territory. This does create some real opportunities if there is existing zone within the communities where maybe we just added 500 feet along some road. Potentially some users who are in the existing zone will receive the same benefit. The one thing I do want to point out, and this was discussed at the city of Momence, any of the jurisdictions that have passed a resolution to agree to abate property taxes previously will be reapproached if the jurisdiction sees they want to. So we're not binding a school district who said in 2014, yeah, we agree when we want to do commercial industrial, that they would then have to do residential. We would have to go back to that school district and ask them for that benefit. So that way they're not potentially losing taxes. I do want to point out the one thing: if a property is paying $100 in taxes right now because it's vacant, and we add a $6,000 tax bill, the first year would be $100. The second year would be 20% of that $6,000 tax bill, and then 40 and 60 and 80 and back to 100%. So there's never really any lost value there. But it was a conversation that came up, and based on the way that we approached the taxing districts previously, I don't think it would be fair to bind. And I don't know, again, I'm not, obviously not our attorney, but we would have to reapproach them. So I know that Mayor Nugent has talked with his taxing districts in Manteno because he wants to offer the largest abatement possible. If the other jurisdictions don't feel they want to do that, that is their prerogative. But I feel like this is a community-based decision. If Hopkins Park wants to approach their township and their library district and their and get additional taxes abated, they're more than welcome to do that. But it's not necessarily a guarantee. And really, in our zone currently, Moment School, Janier Township, and then the Manteno Suite are the only ones that offer property tax abatement outside of the 5 communities that make the enterprise zone. So other areas aren't offering additional property tax abatement as it is. So I wouldn't expect them to extend this, but that's possible. So that was something that came up in Moments that I wanted the board to be aware of.
Okay. Anyone have any questions about enterprise zone? It's kind of complicated. Mr. Wheeler.
Did the Enterprise Zone Expansion Act pass? And so there's more land available.
Yes.
Now.
So in the middle of this process, the General Assembly during veto passed an additional 5 square miles to each enterprise zone. So we wouldn't have met our 15-mile cap because we now have a 20-mile cap. What we're proposing, because of the way the hearing was structured, is we've already asked to reduce that size within the hearing. The ordinances were drafted that way, so we're just proceeding with that. If there were instances that came up where we needed to add territory, we could do that with the state, just to go back to application. The territory we're removing, we removed no territory from any town but North Manteno. That was the only area where we reduced property, and we reduced it by about 2.5 square miles. So that's how we kind of got that back to balance. So yeah, we'll be at just under 15 square miles total, but we'll have another 5 square miles now to work with.
So any additions, as a follow-up, any additions, changes from, if we approve this IGA, any changes would have to be enshrined in another IGA if we expand the territory.
Yeah, so
by all.
Yeah, so what we do is you pass an ordinance amending the previous ordinance. So like it cycles through. It's almost like the existing ordinance falls off. But so the existing ordinance falls off because it's replaced by this. So this is an ordinance amending the previous ordinance. This will become the ordinance. I just said ordinance like 9 times, but so yeah, but what we have is that gives us one governing document. We have an ordinance and a companion IGA, and that way we don't have a series of documents. We just every time the new one becomes the one, and the other ones just kind of fall off as a kind of a process.
Yeah. Also, could I read the list here, because obviously there's people asking about their municipalities. Who's in it? Moments, Manteno, Grant Park, Hopkins Park, and Kankakee County. This is the county's enterprise zone. One of the municipalities in the cities, if you will, the metro enterprise zone, said that they were not going to do it. They want the sales tax. So this only affects I want to say the rural zone, not the one in metro area.
And so in the way the zones are structured, Kankakee County Enterprise Zone offers commercial and industrial property, so commercial added for abatement. The River Valley Zone only offers that abatement on industrial property. So it seemed to make sense to utilize this one. I can tell you, if this is successful, we're going to have a partner right here. that's going to be very interested in how this works, and so they're going to likely have to work that through their process. But yeah, we've got some reluctance from one of the zone members in the River Valley zone to offer this. They see it as a loss. We truly see it as a benefit in every other avenue, and frankly, if we entice a regional or national builder, they're not going to be buying their building materials locally. They're going to use a larger company, and they'll bring, because they buy, it's like bulk wholesale. You know, if you're building 50 homes, you're not buying 200 2x4s.
Yeah, from Home
And
Depot.
so they'll work that contract to get the best possible contract, and then they'll probably be sourcing them out of an area with the lowest, the 6.25 tax rate as well. So we won't lose any real benefit from that, and so we're interested to see how this works. But if it's successful as we hope it will be, I can see the other zone asking for a similar thing.
Okay, Mr. Eckhoff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Ben, was your goal to go ahead and try to get like empty subdivisions to be filled up by the end of, you know, whatever time frame, or what was the goal with the changes to the enterprise zone?
So kind of twofold. So we've got existing subdivided locations that are already lotted out. We've got, I guess, threefold. We've got an effort in Manteno where there's probably larger swaths of land that Mayor Nugent asked to be added that haven't been subdivided yet. And then there's also areas would be, I'm going to call them abandoned, and I'm going to use the definition that IDA uses in that. So like broken windows, missing doors, like not. So what we would call vacant or dilapidated. And so that way, so non-tax revenue generating properties all the way through virgin land adjacent to communities that's within their development area. I mean, we don't want to add 200 acres of farmland 10 miles away from town.
Correct.
And so you'll see the rural areas for us are specific around lot development. We've got north of Momence, we have
Correct,
an area right off of
LeClaire and Front Street.
And so you've got that, that area was proposed by Momence at one time for development, along Ileana Heights.
Yeah, I saw
Garden Eden,
those, I saw those additions,
so we wouldn't be again converting virgin land to do this.
Correct.
But there is some proposed territory like that in both Hopkins Park and in Manteno, but they're directly adjacent to the town limits or within the town limits.
Could I propose 2 other areas possibly to be added? Not right now.
No, we'd have to go back to to Genesis on that. So new hearing, new.
So I guess I'm just going to go ahead and say, like, in the northern portion of my district, Prairie subdivision, just northwest of Grand Park, and like Mini-Maness subdivision as well. I would have thought would be a part of this.
We looked at some of the Is Mini-Maness a golf course?
Correct, but they have like 14 lots or whatever.
Yeah, 8 or 10 lots.
Yeah, whatever.
But it's pretty far from the zone, so we kind of looked at like how far are we using in connecting strip to get there, versus the value of adding 8 or 10 lots.
But those houses would be quite a bit of money. I mean, you're on a golf course, and you're probably talking about $400,000 houses to $500,000 houses out there, I would think.
Yeah. Yeah, it's possible that they could.
And
be
same as Prairie subdivision. I mean, you can't buy a house in there for under $350,000 to $400,000. So, just my thoughts. That's why I asked that question.
Yeah, and it's. I think it's one of those things we at some point took a picture and tried to make a relatively informed decision on it. And again, if this works and we need to make a boundary amendments to that for other areas, we're certainly willing to. I think that's the problem with adding the territory to the zone. You add it and then you go, oh, man, I wish we had added another 20 acres to the west of it or whatever. But that we have the ability to then go through this process. It's cumbersome, but it's fortunately not terribly expensive for us to do it. We don't have a bunch of direct costs. We don't use a third-party consultant. We don't spend $50,000, $80,000 to do it. We just do it in-house with the planning department staff. So,
thank you.
Okay, Mr. Eckhoff. Ms. Weber?
Thank you. I just wondered why they're all on that part of the county and nothing on this part of the county. Why are all the villages in town?
So as far as, I guess maybe similar to the previous point, we'd have a 20-mile connecting strip to add 2 or 3 lots, where, because that zone is on that side of the county. The other zone includes Herscher, so if they're going to amend their zone, we would expect that to pick up the west side.
That's the if for sure.
Yeah, well, so the way the statute's written is we're not allowed to, no 2 enterprise zones can cross. So we can't even get to some areas where you'd have to go all the way to the county line to go, because you can't cross a body of water. And so it's like you have to use the roadways or railways or things like that. You can't just draw a line, and you can't cross an existing zone. So to go from that zone to get over to western Kankakee County, we would be using 20-30 miles of connecting strip to potentially add 1 or 2 parcels. And so it was targeted, but yeah, there are some gaps still on the map based on that approach to it.
Could you explain connecting strip? I think
Okay.
some don't know.
Okay, so under the statute, the zone must be contiguous. So one of the ways that we have creatively made that happen is we use a line and 1.5 feet on either side of the line. So they say the minimum width would be 3 feet. And so we'll draw a line down the center line of a road or the center line of a railway, or sometimes we use like section lines because they're easier to write the legal descriptions for. And so it'll just be on the north line of section so-and-so, 1.5 foot in either direction, and that's how we connect the parcel. So we can technically say we're contiguous. It obviously from the map, it looks very much kind of spaghetti, but that's a kind of a common practice. But when you start adding acres and acres and acres via connecting strips, we try and kind of limit that. Now, rural zones that's just the nature of it. When we added Herscher to the River Valley zone, you have 10-12 miles of connecting strip. It was the only way to do it. But then the other side of that is you can't run any zone through any territory without having them be a partner. And it's a cautionary tale where if you run through a town and you're not offering zone, they still get a vote on your board. And so, in the way the zones work, and this is very important for the members involved, any one member says no to this doesn't move forward. That's it. It has to be unanimous. We don't have those types of problems. I can tell you there are zones in the south suburbs where the city of Harvey didn't vote at a meeting at all for like 2 straight years. They did no zone activity. They couldn't amend their zone. They couldn't because the council at that time was fighting with the mayor, but they just they weren't on board. And so it's nice to add partners, but previously the Kankakee County zone was Manteno and Kankakee. Kankakee counties are. And so we with 2, Andy talks to Tim and we have an agreement. Now we have to bring everybody together and make sure everybody, so the more you add, the more you have to bring to the table. And then as an instance in the River Valley zone, if one member is saying this isn't going to happen, it's not passing my board, then it's dead. And that really limits your ability to do that. So it's good to add, but it can bring some complexity to the zones.
Okay. Okay, Ms. Foster, you're number 9. 12.
Hi, Ben. It looks like for Pembroke, there's 4 areas that are going to be zoned into the enterprise zone, the yellow areas. And I know we had some areas already designated. So which ones are brand new?
So the yellow is new territory.
It's just, okay, it's not what we had before.
Is it red? Red's the existing.
Okay.
And so, yeah, so we met with Mayor Hodge and asked him kind of what areas had adjacent water, sewer, because the other thing is you don't want to add territory that creates a burden upon the taxing district to add water and sewer to connect.
Right.
The ideal scenario would be water and sewer is already in place, roads are already in place, close to town for police servicing, things along those lines. And so we're trying to be accommodating. That is 50 years worth of development land for Pembroke Township, Hopkins Park. I mean, there's a lot of territory added. Same thing for Manteno. You had thousands of acres. It would take a long time to fill that. But yeah, the red is your existing, and so we added the territory in yellow. Talked with the mayor to make sure we were including areas that made sense, that were already subdivided, and so that way those were the ones he proposed in that effort.
Okay. Anyone else? Didn't see anything. I have a couple questions for you to answer in front of everybody. Any time this doesn't work out, you can pull a plug on it, right? Yeah, I think you told me that in a public hearing, but there wasn't any public there. But
So,
you said that you made it sound to me like that if it doesn't work out and it's not gonna go, then you could stop it at any time.
as far as the application process, or once we're approved?
Once you're approved.
Okay, so once we're approved, if no one uses it,
It expires.
no one uses it.
Does it expire within that 10 years or 6 years?
Well, it'll expire. We get 25 years of zone. We applied for in 16, so it'll expire in 41.
I don't have to worry about that then.
But again, it's similar to commercial or industrial. We have territory all over the county that's in the zone that either is vacant and is not being built on right now, or maybe has a building that's already at its highest and best use and they're not investing, which, great. If that business changes hands and somebody, Bungie, as an example, business changes hands and CSL all of a sudden is doing more on their property, they're using the zone again.
Yeah.
If they decide not to do any development on that parcel for the next 30 years, then it's still going to stay within the zone. It's just not going to be utilized. Very similar to this. If we add 40 acres in Manteno with the expectation maybe somebody will put some road, water, and sewer and subdivide it, and that never happens, then no real harm. But potentially if the farmer says, hey, I've got a new thing I need to build and I want to offer some value add to my customers and do some sort of seed sorting, or I'm not an agriculture guy, but like whatever that might be, and he needs to build a big building for it, he could apply for and receive the benefit. And that would be, again, more tax revenue within our community. I think ideally we'd like to see the areas developed with houses, because you get potentially more tax value than just a single building on 40 or 80 or 100 acres. But that benefit would still be available to them. And then if we get to where, to Chairman Wheeler's point, if we get to where we're developing all the land we've got and we need to add area somewhere else, we've got an additional 3,000 acres now to use to develop.
I have one more
sorry.
question.
Seems like that we got a pretty lot in my district. How'd that happen?
We proposed it to the
Have
chief
to be
elected
that way.
officials of the villages and cities. You know, for us, I mean, I guess as I look at it, we looked at it from a perspective of what exists in the county that we could use to may satisfy some of our other needs, not necessarily all new home construction. And so for us, that kind of, we targeted vacant. But yeah, I mean, if the town said, hey, and Mayor Hodges, similar way, hey, I want to add this, 500 feet deep all along this road, and okay. If that's, the third and seventh subdivision of somebody's subdivision, you want to add those two to finish off the subdivision? We look for that guidance from our community partners, and we were willing to add that. A big thing for us was just trying to do the math to make sure the acreage is all fit.
Yeah. Okay. Well, sounds like a lot of work. Appreciate the work you do there, Ben. Yeah.
I have
Okay,
I
Ms.
have one-
Foster.
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry about that. I have one more question. So it looks like this area is pretty spread out. Is it all contained in the village of Hopkins Park, or does some of it spill over into the township, Pembroke Township? Because my question is, are we gonna have to have the approval from the village and approval from township government?
The township is not an entity as
Okay.
as the state identifies jurisdictions
Okay.
in our hierarchy. So counties, state, county,
And
villages,
municipalities.
or
Okay.
village cities.
All right.
So yeah, I mean, without looking directly at the two boundaries, I would say there's area that's not within the village added. There's currently area not within the village that's in the enterprise zone in Pembroke Township.
Okay.
Mr. Wheeler?
We looked at the pipeline too. We looked at where that was going, I believe, and saying this is residential, this is pipeline, it's out of the village. We did look at
Yeah, it's water, sewer, now gas, electric. The idea that you have to add $150,000 worth of infrastructure to add an area doesn't make a lot of sense to add. So directly adjacent to roadway, directly adjacent to natural gas, electricity, water, sewer. Because again, and even with that, we likely added more than is reasonable from a development horizon standpoint. But I think that is an okay effort to kind of get it all included, and knowing that we never. I mean, Tim always says my crystal ball's not that clear. We do our best, but there's still things we're going to end up missing. And so again, if they pop up, and I do feel like this effort, if you look at how the zone's been used since '86, and the billions of investment, if this works and is really good, and this becomes our pilot, and we clean it up and say, hey, there's 5 or 6 other areas we want to add, then I'm just back asking for another amendment from this board and the other boards in a year or two.
Okay. Mr. Eckhoff?
Motion approved.
Okay, we got a motion on the floor. Mr. Long, second. This will be an all in favor. All in favor, say aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Looks like you made it, Ben. Thanks, Ben. Turn you on. Just kidding. Only one time. Okay. Okay, application for intergovernmental agreement. Okay, that's the same type of thing there. Is that the same thing though?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, we're gonna get updated. Is that Ben gonna do the GIS?
That would be me.
Or is Jeffrey here do it, or Dell, you gonna do it?
Yeah, I will do it. Jeffrey had another appointment to get to. To give you an update, the consultant has not got the boats in the water yet. They're waiting for the river to rise. They've been monitoring it regularly. It's been averaging about 1.9 to 2 feet in depth at the river gauges, and they'd really want to wait till it's 3 to 3.5 feet in depth to get out there. So we could use some rain.
Problem with our river is it goes from 3.5 to 8 and then back down to 0. So there's no happy median usually in the river there.
They assure us that when it gets to that level, they can get the boats in the water right away. It has to do with the quality of the data is why they're waiting. We'll get much better data if we can wait till it's around 3 to 3.5 feet deep.
Okay. Okay, any questions for Dell on that? On the bathymetric update? That's the going down the river, checking the depth everywhere. Okay. Any old business today? No old business, any new business, Mr. Long? No news, no news. You gonna make the motion to adjourn?
We'll do that. Okay. Motion to adjourn, please.
Adjourn. Second, Mr. Andrade. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.